Доброго дня, шановні колеги. Ми розпочинаємо наш брифінг «Круглий стіл», який називається
We start our discussion. Energy efficiency test for Parliament. Can deputies accept the laws needed for every city? And the participants of this event are the main motivators and drivers of these ideas from the energy efficiency package of draft laws. I'm Tetiana Boyko. I represent OPORA Civic Network, and we deal with the advocacy and creation of favorable conditions for the condominia. So this is like a marathon. We made many tests, maybe mistakes, and this work was not due to favorable legislation and conditions, but we fought a lot. But we had stories of success due to active position of local communities and self-organized citizens, active city heads. So we see that we can reach good quality results in these conditions. But in order the system work properly, we need more serious changes, and this is impossible without adoption of energy efficiency laws. This is the law on ownership in multi-flat houses. And this law was adopted several years ago, and it provided the algorithms to the owners of multi-flat houses how to make decisions, and also how they can promote their views. So more than 10,000 condominia were created, and this law launched the market of those who order services, who take decisions, how to manage their houses, and whom to hire for implementation of energy efficiency measures. And one more law was adopted on energy efficiency fund, and the energy efficiency fund should be a financial instrument that will provide efficient technical and financial help in order that condominia were able to efficiently use funds for energy efficiency. Also, there are several draft laws that will be adopted by the Parliament tomorrow. We hope that they will be adopted: the law on commercial metering and the law on energy efficiency of buildings. And in this package, until yesterday, they had consultations, and also there is a draft law on communal services that regulate relationship between those who provide services for multi-storied houses and those who provide communal services. So this model that would be chosen between the owners and those who provide services, on this depend the management of these buildings. And there was a meeting of the working group that adopted the final text, and if the deputies today of the profile committee, if they support this draft law, maybe there will be additional consultations with the head of the Supreme Council, and tomorrow we hope that it will be included. So tomorrow there will be a big day in energy efficiency sphere, and we hope for positive results. Once again, in this round table, we have the members of the working group who participated in preparation of the block of this draft laws, and also those who actively promoted and advocated these draft laws. One of the main promoters and advocates from the European Union, the representative of the Euro Commission, Peter Wagner. He is head of the support group for Ukraine in the European Commission, and this is the person who contribute a lot, and he convinces Ukraine that we should move forward to the European standards. And here we have Oleksandr Dombrovskyi, who did really a lot in order that these two laws were adopted, and now he does everything possible in order that this package be adopted. We have a representative of State Agency for Energy Efficiency, Yevhen Mahliovannyi, and this agency, and in its capacities, it really contributes, and they provide technical activities that is not seen, that is not public. So, and the representatives of condominium, Mr. Andrii Sauk, young men who really contribute to this cause by his energy and efficiency and drive, because without it, it is difficult to move forward. The optimism should be present, and also Olha Babii, member of the board of, and she represents the Association of Water Chambers of Ukraine, and some people were invited, but they were not able to come because of objective reasons. And we have representative of analytical center, DiXi group, Andrii Nazarenko, sorry, who also contributed a lot, and the DiXi group did a lot in order to promote and to promote energy reforms. I give the floor to Peter Wagner, head of the support group for Ukraine in the European Commission. Welcome.
Thank you very much for the invitation, for the friendly introduction. And I'm quite optimistic because it's good to be back. Last time, I think it was 2 weeks ago, when I was here with Mr. Dombrovskyi and Deputy Prime Minister Zubko. Afterwards, the Verkhovna Rada voted in favor of the Energy Efficiency Fund, which is the first element of the package that we are indeed, jointly with other international partners and big parts of the Ukrainian community, promoting. Why we are doing that, I tried to explain already last time, and maybe in a nutshell again. We think it is a very good moment now to consolidate 3 years of very hard work in the area of energy efficiency done here in Ukraine, and major progress made. Now, you know a lot about the numbers, etc. yourself. For us, an important part of the progress is that there has been very substantial work on putting into place a sustainable and appropriate legislative framework for energy efficiency. And this legislative regulatory environment is for us extremely important, because it's not only the fund which we will then also support financially, because we know that the fund will only work efficiently and to the full beneficial effects of the population if it has the right rules, the right laws, that all the elements, the definitions, the interactions which are set out in the laws which you have presented, which are part of the package, are in place. For us it is very important, because whenever we are proposing to an international partner, and we are doing that at the moment in some parts of the neighborhood countries, this kind of support to energy efficiency, it is always a three-element package. It's on the one hand a lot of work on the preparation of the legislative package. And here it was not only us, we know that a lot of civil society associations, etc., and of course Rada and the ministry contributed, but also other international partners have worked jointly with us. It's Sweden, it's the EBRD, USAID, etc., and Germany is quite active there as well, together with even some potential money to come. The second important part of each of these packages for us is that we then are available to put funding into a possible energy efficiency fund. And that is where we think for Ukraine over 2 years, if the package is right, that could be up to 100 million euro. A third part is very important for us as well, and that is that we are also offering technical assistance beyond the creation of the fund. The idea there is that for setting up the fund, for managing it, for putting in place a structure where energy audits can take place in a structured way, etc., etc., we are also there with well-known international partners, the IFC, the World Bank Group, but also others are available to assist here, and we from the EU side would finance that. So for us that is very important, and as you rightly said, we are with this specific fund trying to target, notably at the beginning, multi-storage buildings, meaning we are trying to address a segment where enormous savings are possible to the benefit of the individual consumers and citizens, but where generally speaking it's a bit more complicated to achieve that than just going for individual houses or big industrial blocks. And that is why we are ready to do a bit more than we might normally do, because we are convinced the effects are not only on the security side, not only on the economic side, because that can lead to an enormous boom in the building sector for renovations, etc., but there are very strong social dimensions, and there are of course environmental climate considerations which play a role. So that's why for us this is a very, very important project. It is at the moment the kind of the biggest in the package that we are preparing in the different countries we are operating on this with. And it is, as I said, very important for us to underline that we also intend to continue our cooperation. So it's not that we now have worked with you and Rada and others, now we drop a check in the coming 18 months or so, or 2 checks, and then we run away. No, the intention really is to jointly continue, because there will still be some improvements, some adaptations necessary. Let me just refer to one element which often comes up when I'm at the moment talking in Rada and elsewhere to people trying to convince them of the package. Of course, some elements of the laws, and now, for example, the one on energy efficiency in buildings, are not 100% reflecting the EU acquis, the current state of play of legislation. But we are convinced the way it is now will allow Ukraine to start. And it's much more important to now start and in the coming years improve and align further with elements of the European legislation. And other point that is very important for us, we are under time pressure for internal reasons, which we have to, where we have to finalize a number of procedures with European Parliament, with member states. We have to come by the end of June, so in the coming 2 weeks, to the decision of how much money in the first round we can attribute to this important issue. And that's why we are insisting a bit on trying to have these laws as much as possible through. But as I said, we will also stay with Ukraine afterwards. And key message, wherever I am at the moment, and I'll stop with that, I repeat it, yes, we have now the law on the Energy Efficiency Fund. That is a very good starting point. But without all the other elements, the fund will be inefficient, will not be able to be run properly, and will notably not be able to generate the concrete impact and results that we all want to have. And since for us, with our experience, it's important to have the coherent overall package, we always underline it's 4 laws, it's the 3 which hopefully can still be adopted this week, and it's the one which has been adopted. Thank you very much, and I apologize that I will have to, in a few minutes, 10 minutes or so, leave, but we are available for any other kind of discussion with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your optimistic vision. It's very important for us. Хочу надати слово пану Олександру Домбровському.
Now I give the floor to Mr. Dombrovskyi because he has to leave soon. So, thank you. Good morning.
I would like to continue the thread which our European partner, Mr. Wagner, mentioned. He is our great friend. I would like to articulate the topic of my speech as hard optimism and hard success. 3 years ago, a little bit over than 3 years, we had similar discussion in similar format. There were more partners, international partners present at that panel discussion, and there were few persons who believed that there are preconditions for reforming of the corrupt and monopolized energy sector of Ukraine, and that the laws would be voted. Over 3 years ago, we had several challenges before us to launch the market of natural gas, to vote independent regulators law according to our commitments and directives operating in the EU, and we had to vote for electricity market. Despite of all discussions, objective and subjective, the Verkhovna Rada and its committees did their best for those laws to be voted for and to be implemented. 2 weeks ago in the same room we had the news conference on the energy efficiency fund, and I said I am optimistic and I believe that the Verkhovna Rada would vote and the constitutional majority of MPs supported the idea of energy efficiency fund, and I would like to thank our European partners and our experts and representatives of NGO and civil society, because without their lobbying, without their participation, maybe some laws would have not been voted for in the parliament. I am optimistic, but my optimism is quite hard working, and I believe this our efforts, our hard work will give us this, will bring us this success. Many times I told and I wrote that the key thesis, the key step is to vote for these laws, because when the economy of Ukraine spends twice more energy than, or maybe 5 or 8-fold than the European countries spend per unit of output, then we would never be competitive, and we would never be capable to provide competitive services in Ukraine. The next aspect that political debates we should shift from them to just simple implementation. The key factor is exchange, circulation, and registration of inventory. We should give people to understand, and we should understand ourselves in which conditions we live, what is the performance of our buildings in which we reside, and how my apartment in terms of its comfortable and tariffs and bills differ from the apartment of my friend living in the neighboring building, which has other performance characteristics and other year of building. the answers are provided in the commercial metering law. I would like to thank Olena Babak, an MP, and her work group for their efforts put into the law on utilities services. So I want that all three packages are voted for tomorrow. This is extremely important because 40% of losses of energy we have in residential housing stock sector. Just several figures: investments into energy efficiency in any civilized country, they are most beneficial, most advantageous both for governmental and non-governmental entities, because $1 of investment gives the opportunity to save $4. The payback period is less than 4 years. During 25 years, GDP of the world economy grew by 86%, and energy consumption was halved. This means that the world developed some other paths than Ukraine. We are the only post-Soviet economy which has not achieved the indicators which we had before we gained independence. So our energy intensity is huge and energy efficiency is very low in Ukraine. We have no other way than to vote for all these laws. They are critical for the security of Ukraine, for every Ukrainian, for every consumer in Ukraine. I understand as a person who has been working in the parliament quite long period, there are no ideal laws which would suit everyone, but we should do steps. We should make steps and launch energy audit market and resolve problems of commercial metering of water, heat, so that we can limit consumption. Yes, we will face new challenges and we will adequately respond to the challenges. My optimism is in that we should vote for this draft laws, and I hope that tomorrow we will concentrate our political resources to launch critically required reforms in Ukraine. Thank you, Oleksandr Georgievich. You are always optimistic and inspire us. But all the laws which you mentioned, electricity market law, independent regulators law, somewhere they were new versions, new editions were written of those laws, new versions were elaborated, but everything is possible even in the parliament as it is. Everything is real. I am giving the floor to Yevhen Mahliovannyi, Director of the Department for Technical Regulation of Energy Efficiency of the State Energy for Energy Efficiency and Energy Conservation of Ukraine, because the SAEE played the most important role in elaboration of the wordings of commercial metering law and energy efficiency, energy performance of buildings law. Good morning to everyone. First of all, I would like to say that these laws which will be voted in Verkhovna Rada tomorrow, two of them energy performance of buildings and commercial metering bills, they are quite difficult when we were working on them. We pursued the goal to incorporate the interests of all stakeholders in provision of services of metering and the launching of energy certification, energy efficiency, energy performance of buildings. Many aspects were complicated because different stakeholders had absolutely varying interests, different interests. So the main thesis of the draft law on commercial metering is that all services, hot water supply, cold water supply, heating, should be divided between the residents living in the houses, in the buildings, depending on how they consume these resources. So how to divide this consumption? This is the conflicting aspect, and we understood that this would give rise to multiple conflicts. So in the bill we included and we tried to give most clear definitions of these divisions, because in fact the energy entering the building is metered by commercial unit, and the distribution metering is responsible for apartments consumption. So when residents, how they will decide, everything depends on the manager of the buildings. So the technical aspects, technical content gives rise to some dissonance and lack of understanding by grassroots public. I'd like to repeat that we try to be as clear as possible, defining this relationship, metering, commercial metering at the entry to the building and distribution of energy inside of the building. This is as concerns commercial metering bill. As concerns energy performance of buildings, the process was rather complicated, and it remains complicated, and not to the extent in which it is required according to Ukrainian commitments before the EU. The EU representative says that this draft law do not meet European best practices in full and European regulations, European directives. But we should understand that this is only the start of the process in Ukraine. We can't achieve the level as Europe has now. We can't resolve the problems which has already been resolved in Europe already. We should go step by step in this direction, in the right direction. So the draft law in its wording as it is, it would give the opportunity to launch energy audits and energy certification of buildings performance, and these two laws on energy efficiency fund and commercial metering will operate in one direction. So this bill is very important in terms of launching the energy efficiency fund operation in full. So I hope parliamentarians tomorrow will listen to general public opinions and to attitudes of the experts and vote for these two draft laws. I would like to comment your sizes about international best practices. Of course, they are very important for us and very valuable for us, but there are some things which differ absolutely in Ukraine, so we can't copy European practice in full. Sometimes we hear that condominium legislation in Ukraine do not meet European norms because it is not mandatory. Condominium establishment is not mandatory in Ukraine, but we can't copy European practices. We have the ownership of apartments model since the time of privatization. We got a lot of co-owners, and it is not similar to other countries. Buildings have 600 co-owners sometimes, and all of them should gather and take joint decisions. So our practice will be more complicated. We can't copy European patterns, just copy, replicate them without any amendments to our specifics. The same was in Tajikistan. We have 63% of meters installed in Ukraine, all over in Ukraine. We do not have 100% due to some reasons, for example, such as stealing of meters. And also the system of subsidies, until it is changed, until people get monetary aid, until we have the settlements settlements by cashless funds. I would like you, Mr. Peter, to hear about this, that we should remind our government that the government should support vulnerable groups of population and introduce energy efficient measures. We have debts 3 to 6 months to condominiums. So we have a problem when a condominium goes for a heating loan and the bank state financial requirement to give some money to the bank, to the insurance fund, 500 hryvnias per month. This is for reinsurance of risks. So when we do one positive step ahead, for example, parity rates are set, we do not do the other step to protect condominia, to protect providers of services, because they just lack money, because the money have been calculated in their own way by the Ministry of Social Policy. The ministry say that they, as of this moment, they already have the debt of 10 billions of hryvnias. This is the wrong way. We should use the other way. Because of the lack of funding, and also those beneficiaries of subsidies, they are not interested in achieving the energy efficiency. People would not invest into energy efficiency. I would like to give the floor to the stakeholders in the process. We will give the floor to the representative of the condominium.
So we understand that in our country, our society needs reforms. We demand reforms. We all want to live in good country, European country, to have quality services. But not all the deputies understand this. Not all the deputies understand the need to adopt these laws. There is a hole of billions because of the lack of metering. We lack metering. So if you have a car, you fill it with fuel, and then, for example, if you have full 2-liter tanks, so they just fill it without any metering. So you can imagine this. So we live according to Soviet norms, and we have a system of subsidy, and the economy loses a lot of money. Condominium cannot get this money to properly manage their houses, and some cannot pay salary to workers because there is 200,000 or 300,000 of indebtedness. So 100,000 debts is a huge sum for people. And what should condominium do? The condominium that lacks money. So social climate decreases, and myths arise that condominium are bad. So we invested for years to create condominium because we understand that condominium are leaders, because there are co-owners who understand that this is their property and they are responsible for this property, and they control each kopeck. They invest efficiently. They do not waste money. They just want to live in comfortable conditions at minimum money. And this is a big problem, that a lot of people do not feel themselves as co-owners. They do not feel themselves as co-owners, and they wait for some messiah comes, and this constant elections shows that there are a lot of promises that are not delivered, and we face the same problem once and once again. So these draft laws should be adopted as soon as possible, because we should move forward, and this is a step ahead. So some people want ideal things, but there is no ideal in this world, and we should favor good things more. So we should make a step, then the next step, and step by step we will move forward, and we should develop, and we should reach the level of civilized world, and we should pay for what we consume, because now, at the expense of our inactivity, money from the budget and from our pockets, they go to the pockets of oligarchs, and money is lacking for the field things that are really needed in our country. And energy efficiency allows to save. So when I established energy efficiency, at kilowatt was 30 kopecks. Now it is 1 hryvnia. So I saved 5 times. So now I earn because I saved before. And people who have debts, they cannot do this, or it stops them. We should support condominium that are now active, that move forward and show examples to others. 30,000 condominium we have, but not many of them can do this energy efficiency because they see problems others face. So we should help them in order that they do it. So banks should come to them and propose the best conditions in order that they implemented energy efficiency measures. Olha, Babii, member of the board of the Association of Ukrainian Water Chambers, maybe not only about from your association, but please maybe you will tell us about this topic from behalf of other associations. I have never seen such draft laws that would unite this idea, so around this idea. So we had a working group, and there were stakeholders from monopolists, and they asked everyone, just accept it, because we cannot live like this anymore. And I would like to tell the reason why even monopolists, those who deliver services, why they understand the need of this law. First, about water supply, and these areas are really energy, they require a lot of energy, and we should understand that we spend for the production of heat energy 3 times more of energy than European countries. So about the water, for water supply, in Europe, 18%, and we spent 40 to 50%. So if we understand the tariff, we understand that energy efficiency and decrease of expenditures for production of heat energy and for supply of water. This is the only way how to decrease the tariff, but it won't happen tomorrow. And how it will happen, I will tell you later. So we should be honest with our consumers, because only populists say that you can decrease tariff in any other way. In the last 2 years, electricity becomes more costly and other tariffs also go up, and we should not be populists. We should in any way to decrease the consumption of electrical energy and gas for production of these services. There is no other way. Another way is commercial metering. I would like to say about the figures from my experiences. In February this year, in the market, I bought a meter for the metering of cold water with a magnet, and you can buy it on the market. And when we made statistics in multi-storied buildings, we were deeply surprised. The statistic is terrible. If we look at the meters in multi-storied buildings and overall statistics and compare it with the flat metering device, so the losses in the building, we mildly call them, so this constitutes 50% of loss. So if we calculate it on one oblast center, you should understand that the tariff is composed of 2 things: the volume of realization and the number of funds used for the processing of this water. So this is the structure of expenses. So if commercial metering is introduced, so this realization will go up 50% due to the introduction of law of commercial metering. We may say that we have the opportunity to decrease the tariffs 15%. So this is a good indicator for those people who will vote tomorrow. So these are figures that show that it can happen. If we are speaking about heat, the situation is terrible. Commercial metering and heat, this will be the basic indicator that will allow to calculate gigacalorie as good. So now we lose at the stage of supply to the house, and we lose also even we do not know the volume that we lose. So there should be a technological and commercial component. Why monopolies started to calculate? So the parliament adopted law 626, and starting January 2016, the tariffs in Ukraine should have been economically grounded, and then some delay. Starting July last year, these tariffs became economically grounded, and what we got at the end of 2016 as a financial result of the activity of all the enterprises, this is the lack of commercial metering, because 50% of expenditures and losses of all the monopolies, this is under selling of services, and we should speak openly about it. And someone should pay for this. And only one stakeholder pays for all of this. This is consumer. They pay from their own pockets or by subsidy, Or we shouldn't forget that in the budget there is no someone else's money. So they pay from the state budget, but to the pockets of unknown people. So tomorrow it will be the key day, and it will be the indicator of reforms, because there is one more global problem. Maybe someone do not understand why the law on communal services is important. We can blame monopolies, but we should create proper rules of game. Otherwise, they won't play in accordance with these rules, and we should be open as of today. These rules of water supply that are regulated by the provisions of the Cabinet of Ministers, the rules of heat supply, 95%, contradict current legislation, and the typical contract for water supply contradict current legislation. 90% of complaints that are provided to anti-monopoly committee, because concerning monopolies, is the lack of the law on communal services. So if there is no proper legislation and no proper rules, there is no control. So if this draft law is not adopted tomorrow, we would say that we will lose opportunity to start reform today. And lastly, the result from this reform will be in 3 years and maximum in 5 years, and all energy efficiency measures will be implemented in about 10 years. Maybe my children will see it. So from the start of adoption of laws, we need 10 or 15 years in order to form markets and to stabilize the tariffs. In order to have in 15 years stabilized tariffs and development of the field, we need to make a step tomorrow, and the deputies should vote for these draft laws. Thank you.
Two comments. The ever existing controversial views meet, and we are very thankful that this synergy between condominium and monopolies and civil society meet not only in utilities services provision matter. Victoria Vatsitska will have meeting with gas distribution operators, and when we reach this matter of metering, we are ready to go together to the street and rally for this solution. Yeah, this is a marathon, and politicians very often want to have the results now. But first outcomes would be shocking, and we should be honest. We should honestly describe the situation to our civil society, that positive outputs will be available after 3 or 5 years. When I asked French people who started reform 30 years ago, I asked them when you felt visible results. They said 15 years, and Miss Olga named the same figure. Most of governments, they have gone away. This was the price which they paid, but the fruits were born later. The seed was sown, and it gave fruits to their children. So we should do that if we want to build a high quality, high standard, independent country. I would like to give the floor to Oleksandr Georgievich. I need to go to the parliament now. I'd like to comment. Tetiana, you mentioned distribution systems of gas yesterday and the day before yesterday. Along with European community, we had a meeting It was a coordination meeting of distribution operators, gas distribution operators of the countries which are members of EC. And I want you to understand that the question is not in the commercial meeting, but in existence of companies and businesses, communal and state-owned, which provide critical services to the population of Ukraine. When for 26 years the monopolists or other companies have been living in the condition of the lack of rules of the game and deficit. The degree of worn out stock inventory is up to 95%, from 45 to 95%. We should understand that the country is at the brink of very serious, maybe grave technological catastrophe if our pipelines, water pipelines, gas pipelines are not capable to provide not only energy efficiency, but they in principle can't provide any services. This is the critical situation. We had very interesting discussion about with top management of gas distribution network operators. We have the alliance more than 400,000 of gas distribution networks in Ukraine. This is 10 equators of the earth which should be maintained, and they are maintained by the staff which get very low wages. And when we have a visa-free regime in Ukraine, then the labor market now open for our workers, and our highly professional workers will outflow from Ukraine. So it is critically important to vote for the laws and launch them. I have been working for 3 years in the Vinnytsia regional administration as the head of this administration. So this complex, we have passed various complex way in Vinnytsia, and now we have good situation. We have replaced, we have laid the new pipelines, new water pipelines, new gas pipelines, new electrical wiring and engines which were very energy intensive in order to move step by step. And you should understand another trend, that the level of consumption would fall when we equip all consumers with meters. People will start saving energy as soon as they have meters. So the structure of expenditure should be should meet the structure of consumption. The tariffs and the expenditures of any enterprise makes 40 to 80% in the total mix of expenditures of any entity. So in this case, this is in fact so, because there is an entity, a company, there are countries which are not interested in Ukraine becoming energy efficient countries. So I would like to give this positive messages to all MPs of Ukraine, and I am running to the Verkhovna Rada for the meeting. We wish you fruitful voting. Now Denis Nazarenko will finalize and maybe give us understanding of the stand of the European community. Thank you very much for this wonderful event, and it is very great that we can see this level of interest, so high level of interest to this question. There is no way I would like to accept then then voting for and then implementing these laws. There is a question when to adopt these laws, why they have not been adopted yet, and whether they would be adopted tomorrow. I would like to mention two items. I would like to demonstrate the relevance of starting these first steps today. This discussion in the European countries in this area of metering, I've seen a very good report about the problems of metering at the European Commission, European Union, and among the most important problems which are on the agenda is the same problem which is so in Ukraine. This is groundless installation of meters, and all this stops in this discussion. And also they discuss what information should be included. The directive delineates three definitions. This is metering, billing, and information which is billing information which is additional information, and the directive has four mandatory items set forth of actual prices and comparison with the previous year, contacts of the companies, contact details, who can help and resolve the situation if something is wrong, and also the information can be added, the average information can be added by categories of consumers for people to see how much an average consumer with my characteristics space. So the economic grounds of of cost effectiveness of some measures is the main problem in Europe, and very detailed technical discussion is on the way. So what we are talking about, whether to vote for or against, in Europe the discussion goes the other way. They vote for, but they think how to improve and improve and improve at the level of detail this implementation of their regulations and laws. So economic effect is weighted, and how it is related to the cost. So what we are talking about is just 3% of the work, of the efforts we should put in order to get economic effect in our bills. I'm not talking about the Article 15, I'm not talking about smart metering, about
Demand response.
Demand response. So in the context of commercial metering, this is what we should focus on if we have made our home assignments in time. For example, if we had adopted this laws 2 years ago, but we had not. I would like to thank the event organizers and the MPs for their optimistic, decisive stance, and in the context of further steps, I would like to accent that we have lots of work ahead, and at the SAEE and executive authorities of SAE continues working on metering matters, and I would like to take part in the round table on the next draft laws which are now being drafted, I would like to mention again the words of Mr. Carroll. In order to remain at our place, we should run as fast as we can. So what our counterparts are doing now in Ukraine, we should try to accelerate our efforts to make the gap between us and Europe less big. Our counterparts from the European countries started running in this direction 20 or 40 years ago. We have lost the time. Our networks, our plans, they are obsolete and worn out, so we should run very fast. And the implementation via secondary legislation just have not been mentioned today in order not to voice out too many messages, but without reforming the system of subsidies, we can't hope for success, because investment programs, even on district heating, on gas, the investment component for meters is included, but you heard the Premier said last week that we would fire governors if they do not install meters, but the question is not in mayors. The matter is even when monopolists want to install meters, but fines, they flow out, they just wash out all funds from these companies. Those fines which are imposed on those monopolists. So they have 70% of the subsidy beneficiaries. They just have only 30% of payments in place from residents. The situation in district heating is even worse. So everything is very complicated, and at this roundtable discussion we only focus on energy efficiency package, which is a reanimation package, and the Vice Premier Gennady Zubko said that there is enough work for us and our children. Let's hope that not for grandchildren. So our official part of the panel discussion is over. I see there are journalists among audience. Maybe you can give some comments on the part of stakeholders.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Thank you for your work and promoting this issue of reform in the sphere of energy efficiency. I would like to comment and address two audiences. These are consumers and deputies. Anton Kovalyshin did ask about consumers. I would like to say that reforms are good, but we shouldn't wait for them. We should act proactively. We should become energy efficient even before the state obliges us to establish meters and to save energy resources. And when it happens, prices will go up for the metering devices. So before these laws are adopted, before they are signed and implemented, now we should speak how we will save and to establish meters not only in input and output, but also in all workshops and units of production. Energy audits should be started now. Despite summer, it can be done. The cycle of energy efficiency measures can be from months up to 1 year if you start now, so you may become energy efficient only in a year in some areas. Concerning the deputies, they should be addressed, and many deputies, they are the owners of property, plants, buildings, and they personally, they should be interested that their enterprises and their ownership be energy efficient in order to lose less on energy resources. So I speak with them, and some of them even don't know what resources they spend and what they lose. So maybe these deputies should be taught on energy efficiency and what can be done to improve their situation while they are in the parliament. Thank you. There is a suspicion that many of them get subsidies, so the issue for them is not so acute. Do you have other questions? If there are no, I would like to comment. Maria Yemets, Ukraine Crisis Media Center. For us, it is very important. While speaking about this question at the state level, we should communicate properly with the public. We had many discussions, so the information is provided to the media, to the people, but when I start to speak with people, my acquaintances, relatives, I find out that people do not know anything. They do not understand these ideas of condominia, the subsidies, and so on. So that the tariffs will go up. So the system should be changed. That's why first we wish that the Supreme Council voted tomorrow, and we should establish proper communication and wake up the initiative at the grassroots level in order that people wanted to create condominia. Do you have other questions? Yevhen Selenina, Radio Liberty. I have a question on this topic, but maybe the adjacent topic, about the strategy of energy efficiency proposed by experts. Do you envisage such an opportunity to people to use in multi-storied buildings alternative sources of energy? Maybe it will be done faster than waiting for the implementation of laws. If southern wall is covered by solar panel, so the building can sell energy to other houses. So evidently, this can be one of the next steps. We won't discuss it now. But in order to establish solar battery, and Andrii may comment on this. For this, we need green tariff for condominia, and as of now, there is no such provision in legislation, and everyone in National Commission to whom we address to, there is no even such a department who wants to deal with this issue. That's why we must have this, but we should think through how to do it. You said it correctly. There is one remark on this. But to whom does this wall belong to, or the roof belong to? So these things belong to all the co-owners, and the majority of people believe that this is someone else's communal property or any other property, not theirs. So there is no such an issue about it. So first we should explain that they are the owners, and then there will be different attitude, and there is an urgent need for this, and we need to coordinate these issues. And we have here in this hall the heads of condominium, but when you face our monopolists, you understand that you just want to leave everything and go to another country. So we wait for these laws. There should be clear rules of the game that are transparent. So in each obol energo there are different rules, and there are no proper rules. So this is like in Africa maybe. About first question about misunderstanding, because people are confused. I speak with consumers and have been speaking with them for 3 years, and we communicated with them. So these were leaflets, talks, working with condominium heads and with experts. But we have one important problem. When we are speaking about reform, people do not understand because they got accustomed to other things and they are afraid of a new. And proper communication is important when people start to understand you. Not just some imaginary things like communism. You should show by experience of efficient condominium, successful houses that have alternative sources of energy. Unfortunately, our people, they do not understand it on words. They need to be shown some good examples of condominium. And if we have enough of these good examples, people will understand that they are owners who manage their buildings. And in this way, their consciousness will change. And about these monopolists and about alternative sources, there is one global problem monopolists say about the system of sewage is a source of biogas that can be used to clear the sewage water. But in Ukraine, we lack legislation how to do it. So when we produce electricity, then sell it to energy market, and then for 2.6 we buy it from energy market until we have a law on maybe compensation or the possibility to spend energy for their own needs, the market won't work. So this limitation causes the absence of opportunity. So you go to monopolists and say, turn on the battery, but they say, we cannot do it. We should buy from you, and then we should sell to you. So we say that there should be proper rules of the game, and even monopolies will be interested in development, and then investors will come. It is difficult to do something without investors. And so there should be good examples. Maybe energy will be bought by energy market. I would like to comment on this issue. Here we should see two aspects. If we are speaking about electrical energy, these are one rules of game, and heat energy, there are different rules of the game. The issues you raised is about passive houses that are in Europe. They do not use energy, what they need, they produce due to alternative sources of energy that are placed on the building or near the building. And the next stage is active building. They do not consume, they provide this energy to the network, and they get it when they need it. And it shows that these are active buildings. And if we are speaking about multi-storied buildings, this is a far prospect, but we can create passive houses and to consume less energy due to the alternative energy, especially heat energy. This is possible even now, and we try to establish it in the law on energy efficiency to simplify the procedure of setting and the use of the energy. So this is envisaged in the draft law, the possibility to establish these alternative sources. No one can forbid this. And if a house decreases its consumption of heat energy, so you should not implement any conditions. The monopolist is just informed that you consume not 1 gigacalorie, but for example 0.5 due to some pumps and half of the energy they produce themselves. So the logic and the principle is envisaged in this draft law. So these are those progressive aspects if it is adopted. If there is a direct norm in the law, we believe it will work and monopolists won't be able to create obstacles. Thank you. If there are no other questions, and on this optimistic note, we would like to end the press conference, and we know that all the stakeholders, and especially investors, they need to have clear rules of game, otherwise there won't be any efficiency. You know that our people do not have a lot of money, so we need investment, and we hope that we'll be closer, one step closer to Europe tomorrow. And we may say that this is A or B in the market, and we will start these rules of the game. On behalf of Ukrainian Crisis Media Center, thank you for this fruitful discussion, and we hope that the Parliament tomorrow will adopt this long-awaited decision. Thank you, and have a nice day.